Hi, I'm Christy Whitman. Welcome to the Quantum Success Show. And today I am beyond excited because I have someone that I grew up with and just absolutely admire and respect. And I am so excited to interview the amazing Dave Pratt. Dave Pratt is an American radio personality, not DJ, and there's a big difference. And he is known to fans all over Arizona as the morning mayor. His show, Dave Pratt in the Morning, became the longest-running rock and roll morning show in the United States. Dave Pratt has sold more than 100,000 albums with his band, the Sex Machine Band, which has actually started out as a joke and ended up as a joke. But he sold more than most bands do. But he had sold-out shows in major venues throughout Arizona. And he began his career at the age of 16 in his hometown of Elko, Nevada, and always knew he wanted to be a radio personality and not a DJ. And as a young kid, he had this vision. So he wrote an amazing book, which if you are a Dave Pratt fan, you have to pick this up and read it because it is like a page turner. And it's called Behind the Mic, and he shares that as a young child, he knew he wanted to be on the radio, and even when encouraged to find another profession or something else to fall back on, he responded, "Nothing else, I want to be on the radio." He was that determined. He was inducted into the Arizona Broadcasters Hall of Fame in 2009, and he is the only personality in the history of Arizona to be nominated nationally as Personality of the Year in both rock and country. I could say so much about this amazing man. I'm just so excited that you're here. Thank you so much.
Well, you make me sound great, and the truth is I just roll out the blue barrels on Tuesdays, but thank you, and I like the red.
Gotta do it. Red Rockin' Radio.
You're reading my book. Should I apologize?
No, it's awesome. No, because I have to say, I met you. I didn't even know who you were. I was 14 years old, and we have to pull up this shot because you actually were camping out at ASU, and I was working for my dad. I used to work for my dad. I was always very focused in career, and I knew as a young kid I wanted to make money, and so it was an opportunity for me to go in and make some money during the summers where all my friends were playing and vacationing and everything. Yeah. So I worked for my dad answering his phones, and he had another woman working for him, or in her early 20s. Her name was Gina. And Gina comes to me one day and she goes, "Come on, Christy, we're going to go buy Dave Pratt beer." And I'm like, "Who's Dave Pratt and why are we buying?" Yeah,
and you're 14 years old.
I'm like, I had no clue who you were and why we were buying you beer. And she said, "He's on top of one of the buildings at ASU and he wants to get Bruce Springsteen to come to." And I'm like, okay. It was just a trip out of the office, so I was happy.
Right.
And we went there, and you were so kind. And as a 14-year-old girl, it was like, well, that could go both ways. I mean, that could go the wrong way. But I mean, you were so kind, and you paid attention to me, and in a very respectful way. And I remember thinking, God, he's such a nice guy. And so then we went, and I started becoming a rocker. I became a rocker because of you.
I love it.
Because you were on KUPD.
And looking at those photos that you shared, that takes me back. It's 1985. And Bruce Springsteen, not allowed to come to Sun Devil Stadium. And I was on the roof trying to get petitions to allow Springsteen to play on a school night at the stadium because typical arena couldn't hold a show. Born in the USA, as everybody knows, was this huge album.
Right.
And all of their tech stuff, their staging was for football stadiums. And ASU said no. So that's why I was on the roof collecting petitions so that he could play at ASU. And it never worked, but we had a ton of fun. People brought me beer, okay? And we camped on the roof for 11 days in August. During rush week. Now, for a young man, how much fun do you think that was?
Because you were how old at the time?
24.
Oh, wow.
I mean, how much fun did I have that week? And Springsteen ended up calling to say, thank you for the efforts, and that, to me, that made my day. Nils Lofgren, his guitar player, lives here in the Valley.
Awesome.
So there's a lot of great memories there, so thank you for bringing that up.
I got to say this, too, because for most people that don't know, and that we hear that Arizona's hot in the summer, it was like 108 degrees for like 11 days.
Yeah.
For you to do that, and the commitment just goes to show the kind of man you are, because it is a young age, and it's in your book, and I never knew this about you. you knew from a very young age, you had the vision, and you would practice by yourself in your room. And I love that, Dave, because that's one of the success principles I talk about in quantum success is like wearing the energy, like really feeling yourself being in the state and having that picture, not just having the visual, but really have that feeling sense and practicing it and go. It's like you were a radio personality, not a DJ.
Thank you.
Which is huge.
Thank you.
I didn't know. I think before I've called you a DJ, so I have a huge
That's
apology.
okay. That's okay.
I apologize. I was ignorant.
That's
I didn't
okay.
know. But you know, for you to have that vision as such a young kid, and even when people were trying to, come on, you're not gonna be a radio personality and talk you out of it. What kept that vision for you?
You know what, Christy? It's all that I ever wanted to. I remember being just a little tiny kid with my buzz cut in the summer, traveling in my parents' wood-paneled station wagon with the rear jump seat, right?
Oh my gosh!
And
the family truckster?
the little guy was talking to me from the dashboard, and I remember telling my mom, "I want to be that guy. I want to be that guy." And some say that I'm lucky because I've always known what I've wanted to do. And you know, some kids, they want to be an astronaut or a rock star or an actor, and life goes on, and for one reason or another, maybe they aren't able to perceive those dreams to reality. I was really lucky that that's something I wanted to do. It's something I felt I could achieve, and I did. I used to, you know, I did not have a good voice as a high schooler, and I would practice in the mirror, and I would practice on, you know, a little tape recorder trying to read news. And first couple times I got on the air, I was so scared and so bad. But that's part of the experience. It's part of the journey. But I've been very blessed. So thank you. Thank you.
Well, you know, one thing I absolutely, as one of your listeners, because when I first met you, all I would listen to was KUPD. And my dad, in this, you know, area of Scottsdale and Phoenix, he was a mechanical engineer. So he had done one of the local radio stations. So I would always listen to that station. But I converted after I met you. And then I started getting introduced to all these different rock bands. And I found out that you actually, for my very first concert, it was Pat Benatar, Compton Terrace. You actually announced her.
I introduced that show.
Amazing. So we go back so much. But anybody I talk to in the Phoenix area, you ask anybody, who is Dave Pratt? And they always say, oh, he was the rock and roll mayor. I mean, you were a hero here, and it's amazing.
You know what's kind of funny about that is when I had the chance to start in Phoenix radio, it just happened to be a rock station. I didn't really grow up as a huge rock fan. Yeah, I liked my share of rock, but I grew up in a little country town, country western. And I mean country western, not country. There's a difference.
Yes.
Country western ruled in my small cow town ranching community of Elko, Nevada. So I really grew up around that culture more than I did rock. But because KUPD had the opening, and that's where I started, I kind of had to learn that whole rock culture, and it was brand new to me. And I knew some of the groups from, you know, when I was growing up, but I definitely wasn't a rock-driven personality. And then as time went on, I guess the marketing worked. People just kind of looked at me as this rock guy. But in truth, in my personal life, I was never that guy. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed what I did for a living, and I certainly appreciate those days.
Well, one of the things that anybody that's ever listened to you, and you read it, I mean, it's one of the first things that you talk about in the introduction of your book, is how much you appreciate your listeners. And I always felt gratitude, you know, because I felt like you were talking right to me. And you know, the loyalty that your listeners had for you because you appreciate them. You appreciate your life. You even have a segment on your show, Dave Pratt Live Now, where you're appreciative, you're a thankful mayor, and you do this whole thing about gratitude, which gratitude and appreciation are one of the highest vibrations in the universe. I mean, it's like one of the just the best feeling when you're in that state of appreciating someone, where you're in gratitude for them. It makes everybody feel expansive. So I see why you have so many loyal listeners.
You know what? I've always appreciated my listeners and viewers, and it really is comparable to going to a great restaurant and having a huge menu. You know those menus that are oversized that they
Yes.
give you at restaurants? And there's a million selections. And viewers and listeners have a choice of all the entrees and appetizers and what they want to order. And those who chose my show, they mean a lot to me because they could have chosen anything. And then they stick by me and they're so loyal. And I promised my listeners, even early in the day, that I would never leave them. And my promise was never about a particular format. Yeah, I'll stay on rock radio, I'll stay on country radio, I'll stay on talk radio. That wasn't the promise. The promise was that I would never leave them, meaning I would never leave Phoenix. I love Phoenix. And to be honest with you, Christy, and that's what your show's all about, I've had the offers from New York and LA and Chicago and MTV, and I tell a lot of those stories in my book. I love Arizona. I just always wanted to be in Arizona, and this is where my most loyal listeners, viewers, and followers are, and I'm very grateful.
Well, you know, that's one of the things that I just admire so much about you is that you have had so many opportunities, but you're very clear on what your priorities are. And you were so focused, like you even left a girlfriend that you had in Elko, Nevada, named Deanna, right, to pursue your dreams. And there was, I want to find it because there's a quote that you had in your book where you said, I've got over here.
Boy, I love it. Thank you so much for investing in the book. That means a lot to me.
Well, you know, it's funny. I got it from Amazon, and it says Sharon, good morning. I'm not kidding. It's autographed to Sharon.
I hope you got a good price on it.
Who's Sharon? But you said, here it is. Did you have to leave happiness in search of happiness?
Right.
And I love that because it's like you were so focused. You were willing to do whatever it took to be a radio personality, even if it meant leaving Elko, Nevada, leaving your girlfriend, leaving everything that was good there. You actually made that choice to continue to make your life better. And I'm sure that wasn't an easy choice to do.
You know, life is really interesting in that regard because I did. My big goal was to achieve my dream of being in radio. And I don't want to wreck the rest of the book for you, but as you read through the book, you'll find that my dreams changed to where I'm blessed to be in media. I've always appreciated, but I realized that my dream really wasn't career. My dream was family. And when I met Paula, who I just never thought I could love somebody that much and be so unselfish to care about somebody else more than I do myself. And I think that's true for a lot of people. And I know that sounds a little narcissistic, but as we're younger, we always care about ourselves more than anybody else. Well, true love is when you meet somebody who you care about more than yourself, and you just want to take care of them forever.
Yeah.
And I realized that my dream seemed to be radio and media, but my true dream was family. And I don't really define myself by media, so a lot of people, they mention Dave Pratt, and I'm very proud of my career, and they put me into boxes. Rock jock, country jock, media owner, network owner, public speaker, author, whatever it is, and all those boxes are great. Love them all, and I'm proud of them all. But that's not how I define myself. I define myself as a husband, a father, a son, a grandson, and a friend. That's really how I define myself. You know, the old Johari window where people have different perspectives than you have of yourself.
Yeah.
I probably perceive myself differently than most people, and I think that's healthy. I think that's good.
Well, it's amazing. Even in your book, you talked about how you would have opportunities, and I wouldn't even call them opportunities, but there was one instance where, you know, you were expected to do lines of coke and have prostitutes around you and stuff, and you were just so clear about who you were, and that wasn't you weren't even going to go there.
Yeah, that happened a lot, Christy. I was never really into the culture, and I don't want to judge against those who enjoyed that culture, but it was never for me. But being in the rock format in the crazy 80s, the anything goes 80s, you could be outcast if you didn't participate in the fraternity of sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Right.
And I would go to bring on some of the biggest concerts in town. We had the #1 radio show in town. And some of the groups themselves, the biggest names you can possibly think of were like, hey, Dave, you know, here, have one of these, snort some of this. And I never participated. And some of them looked down on me at that time, like, who is he? Too good to hang with us? You know, what kind of
Right.
geek is this guy? But later in my career, they kind of came back around to respect me and the decisions that I made because I was still around, and some of the radio guys that took part in those vices, they weren't around anymore.
Right.
So it's like I mentioned, it's kind of ironic how life can turn around if you hang in there long enough to see it.
Well, one of the things I so admire you, I always have. When my admiration when I met you was a few months ago. We've been talking for a while on email, and it's true. Like, you answer every email, and it was amazing because I saw you on Dave Pratt Live, and I'm like, oh my God. And then I emailed you, and I said, I met you when I was, I think, 13 or 14. You knew exactly when it was. It was a Bruce Springsteen thing. But what really makes me so respect you is the fact that, you know, you can tell by the quality of a person with the relationships they have. And you've been married to Paula for how long?
Yeah, coming up on 30 years. To her, it seems like 75, 80. I outpunted my coverage, and I don't know how I got so lucky. But yeah, I've been very, very blessed, and she's an unbelievable mother, and she puts up with me, so I'm very happy.
Even the laughter that we just heard from Mr. Rob over there. I mean, you guys have known each other, what, 35 years?
He's been my best friend for how many years, buddy?
1980, 38.
Forever, and I get to work with my best friends. And I have to say, Christy, when you mentioned that, you know, you were checking out Dave Pratt Live and stuff, I wanted to contact you, and I contacted your manager in your office because Christy Whitman, New York Times bestseller, I thought you would be a huge addition to our network and to have a show on our network. So I was trying to get hold of you. I had no idea that you lived in Arizona. So when your manager in Florida finally hooks me up with you and you mention, oh no, I grew up, I've already met you, I'm from Arizona. I'm like, are you kidding me? I've been trying to meet this girl and get her on her network. It's funny how planets kind of, align.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so full circle for me.
And now we're buddies. We're going to dinner and hanging out. And, you know,
Amazing.
Frederick's letting me thumb wrestle with the boys. And, it's...
You have no idea how amazing that was to be in Carefree, Arizona, doing a weekend for some women, and then getting text messages from my husband, seeing my boys in the studio with you, like someone I admire so much. You know, you did a segment on your show a couple of weeks ago, and it really touched me because you were talking about, you know, you were in Arizona, you grew up in Arizona when, and you listed all these things, and one of them was you watched the Wallace and Ladmo show, and you got a Ladmo bag, or you wanted a Ladmo bag.
When vinyl melts or a VHS tape melts, there's ways to know you live in Arizona, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you're one of those ways that you know that you live in Arizona, because
that's a compliment.
Everybody knows who Dave Pratt is, and everybody has been touched by you in some way. Let's keep your mind clear over there, Rob. No, every you know, I can mention your name to anybody. And as a matter of fact, I emailed you last week. I was on Facebook, and we're doing our 30th high school reunion, and someone posted a concert ticket from KUPD, or from what was it? The band. I can't even think of the band. Anyways, they posted a concert ticket, and they were like, yeah, Dave Pratt, KUPD. And there was this whole chain of information on you and Red Rockin' Radio and all that. So you are just an icon in Arizona. And so I am actually thrilled because you are a visionary. You've been a visionary since you were a kid. What you did with your radio show wasn't KUPD that did that, you did that. And you even credit your dad in the book for teaching you about business, teaching you about marketing. And you just have a vision. You have a way of thinking that's very different and very creative. You allow yourself to be in that creative mode, to create a band out of a joke that sold 100...
With no musical ability, no vocal talent.
None.
No, let's be honest here. I don't play an instrument. I have no musical ability. I can't sing at all. Having said that, wrote 90-some songs, released 3 albums.
You were the lead singer.
A home video. Right? Is that the craziest thing? Christy, at dinner, not to be repetitive, but I told you the story about Dave Meniketti from Y&T. We were doing a show together, and he had me sound check with him. And he said, do you want to sing Summertime Girls with me? And I said, sure. Y&T was opening for my band, Sex Machine Band, out at Chandler Compadre Stadium. So I did a sound check with him, and we sang his song that's very melodic, Summertime Girls. And we got done with the sound check, and he looked at me and he goes, Dave, you can't sing, can you? And I said, no, can't sing at all. And he goes, you have a band? I said, yep. And he goes, we're opening for you? And I go, yeah. And he goes, what do you do in the band? I sing. And those who got the humor got the humor.
Right.
And our listeners got the humor. It got to the point we'd have, seriously, 10, 15,000 people showing up at these concerts. Ted Nugent, Bad Company, and Tesla, and Y&T, they're opening for us. Great White. And the listeners got it. Yeah. It was Spinal Tap on steroids, and it was so much fun.
That's amazing.
And we gave all the money to charity.
But that's, I mean, again, your creativity, your generosity, you're a visionary. I mean, you represent the book Quantum Success. I talk about so many different principles of to create not just a linear step-by-step success, but to be 22 years of age, to be on a radio personality, and to do what you did. I mean, you were well known all over the country. I mean, even you had a picture of Howard Stern next to your in the book. I was like, wow, you're face to face next to Howard Stern.
We were the 3 original quote unquote shock jocks. A tabloid back then. I called it a tabloid because it was kind of so called Radio and Records, as well as Billboard magazine. They named me, Howard Stern, and a guy from Washington, D.C. named the Grease Man, incredible talent, the upcoming new breed of jocks, and called shock jocks. And we were together, I mean, as a trio. Howard was the first one to take his show and do it on a national level. But we were all basically doing the same type of radio then. But I didn't want to sacrifice Phoenix. I didn't want to leave Phoenix to go to New York or Chicago or L.A. I turned down the MTV deal because I wanted to be in Arizona. And I've just always loved Arizona, and I've never regretted that decision.
Well, I always say about you, since I've met you, you know, I know a lot of people in transformation and personal development. I have never met anybody so abundantly minded that hasn't done any type of that kind of work on themselves. And to read your book and to hear, like, no one's going to talk you out of it. This is who you were going to be. This is what you were going to do. Pure determination and drive. And you've even said some other people might be more talented than me, but they're not going to outwork me. I was amazed at the things that you did to get the jobs that you had, whether it was taking out the trash or the double-wide trailer.
I was a janitor.
You're taking out the underneath the trailer. You're taking out the tumbleweeds and cleaning it out.
Showing them that I wanted to work. But you know that to be totally cliche, that song "Wind Beneath My Wings." Not to get too mushy here, but as life has gone on, that's really been Paula. And thank you for the kind compliment. When I was a young man, before I met Paula, I did have that drive to achieve my goals, and I'm very proud of those days. But when I met Paula, she allowed me to make decisions that others thought were very risky, and she's been with me all the way. For example, when I decided to try country radio and leave rock, you would have thought that the world had exploded.
Right.
But she was like, no, go for it. A year later, we were nominated for Country Morning Show of the Year. We were at Madison Square Garden in New York City, and they were doing the awards. And on stage that night, I mean, Tim McGraw, Kenny Chesney, Martina McBride, Reba McEntire, the biggest stars in the world. And I looked at Paula, and sometimes when you really love somebody, you don't have to say much. And I just whispered, thank you. And I gave her a hug, and she knew what I meant. Because with 4 kids and the risk, monetarily and career-wise, of making that kind of change, it can't come easy. But she's always been with me. When I started Star Worldwide Networks, and I decided to completely leave old school radio, 100% with me. Never a question. And I think that that's really what a true best friend's all about.
Absolutely. Well, I'm just absolutely thrilled that I'm part of your network, part of your family, because that's how I treat my business and everybody that supports me in my business. So I feel like we've joined families, and I'm very grateful for that, because trust and loyalty and generosity are really my top priorities in life, and the things that I admire most in people. So I appreciate you being that way with me. And I'm really looking forward to a very long relationship on this amazing network with this amazing show with Rob as my producer. We can't bring him on the camera though, because it might melt it. Right?
Well, the reason that we made the decision for Rob Trigg to be your producer, okay, is because I was afraid that we were going to have a show on the network better than mine. So, you know how you put weights in the saddlebag of a really fast horse to slow him down? I thought, Christy's going to be awesome. She's going to make me look bad. She's going to be the biggest show on the network. How do we slow her down? Bring in Trigg. Rob, bring in Trigg. Bring in the guy that nobody selected to play kickball in 6th grade. Here he comes.
Last to be picked.
Here he comes. So he's here as a handicap for you.
Oh,
so
I didn't know that. I love
never
him.
have to
I'm
worry.
a learning experience.
Oh,
yes.
okay. I love it.
And we also thought, who's the one guy that Frederick would never be jealous of? Oh, I know. Let's bring in Mongo from Blazing Saddles. No, he's the very best. He's the very best.
Truly is. So even your generosity in giving me Rob to play with.
Oh, take him.
Yeah, I will. I love him.
Be
I love
careful.
him.
You might turn into his 10th wife.
So to end this raging horse, to land this plane, I just want to say that you haven't always had it easy. I mean, you had determination. You worked really, really hard. There definitely was some contrast along the way, leaving KUPD after 20 years with the change in management and everything. You dealt with contrast in such a graceful way. And what I mean by contrast is problems, issues, what you don't want. And then you really parlayed it into something that you do want. And I really, truly feel like you are a living example of quantum success. And I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
And thank you for being my mentor and my friend. And you had a saying on your show that I would hear every single morning. And it was my first affirmation ever. Can you tell us?
If you don't deserve it, who does?
Thanks, everybody. Have an amazing week. Let me know what you're taking away from today. Dave, thank you so much.
Thank
I love
you.
you, and I really appreciate you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Paula, for being the wind beneath his wings, because he spreads his wings to everybody, and we're all blessed because of it. So thank you, Paula. Bye, everybody. Have a great day.